The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Listen in as your host, Casey Colburn, brings together a perfectly picked panel of guests to discuss hot topics and events within the metaphysical and paranormal field. But don't worry, should the discussions get too heated, our studio's witch will sound her cackle to simmer the cauldron back down. Listen for new episodes of Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. only on Paranormal Buzz Radio. Welcome to Cauldron Talk. This is Season 2, Episode 9. I'm your host, Casey Colburn, and today we welcome to the circle Heather Mattison and Jessica Ansley. Today we are talking about Christmas. Welcome to Cauldron Talk, ladies. How are we doing today?
Doing great.
I'm doing good.
Doing great. How you doing?
Good. I'm happy to have you guys back on today. Today we're going to be talking about Christmas and the Yuletide season. And some of my questions for you ladies today are, what are some of the modern holiday traditions that you practice?
So for me, I practice a lot more traditional traditions, but there are a couple, I guess, modern ones you could say. I like to do the cookie baking around the holidays and kind of celebrate in that way sometimes. We'll do like the cookie exchanges. And just like with everything else that I do, I try to put a lot of love and, spirit into my baking and cooking and things like that, because I am, I guess, technically a kitchen witch. So I definitely like to do that for people. And then one little weird thing on Christmas Day, if my kids don't wake me up first, which they usually do, I like to wake them up and we make hot cocoa and we kind of snuggle in our holiday pajamas together before opening gifts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of, as far as traditional, I just do a lot of traditions that my mother always did, growing up. We do the stockings when my kids were younger. We always had the stockings. The Santa Claus would come and fill overnight, and we do that. We'd open a gift on Christmas Eve. We always would open one. And that was always like a tradition in the family. We used to always have a get-together with the family on Christmas Eve, back when I was younger. And that sort of fell out as time went on, and we ended up having parties after Christmas. But that was always a nice thing. I always loved the quiet of Christmas Eve, that time of year. I do baking as well. I always do cookies. And, this is going to be a strange year this year. But traditional thing, the tree. I always put up a crush set, which I have from my mother as well. I inherited her manger scene that I always set up every year. Ever since I was born, I always got to set that up or help her do that. That was always fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love this time of year. I mean, Halloween is my favorite, but I love the warmth that Christmas brings. It's also my little sister's birthday, so shout out to Samantha for her birthday. So we do all sorts of fun stuff. Presents in the morning. Christmas Eve, everybody gets to open up one. And I think really that was just a holdover everybody because we were chafing at the bit trying to get to the presents. We all sorts of things, decorating the trees. I just recently decorated the tree at the Hinsdale house, so that was a lot of fun.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so pretty. I didn't know you did it.
Yep.
Cool.
It's actually it's my tree. I can't have my tree up at my house, because my cats they won't leave it up. And it's an 8-foot tree. It was kind of pricey when I first got it, so I'm so thrilled that I found a place that I can safely have it up and it can look the way it's supposed to instead of just sitting in a box. But I also recently helped my mom set up her Christmas tree, getting that all ready. So yeah, definitely a lot of tree decorating around this time of year. we like to put together stockings and stuff, personable stockings for everybody too. Do you guys do that sort of thing?
Not like personal ones. I used to do that for my kids. But Santa Claus. But not for the family, not for the rest of the family though. We would just have it as like the kids. Do you do
Yeah.
the adults, you mean, too?
Yeah, we so the adults usually get kind of like, because the main focus for gifts in my family is more about the kids. So everybody, I guess, spends the most on the kids of the family, and then we just get like a stocking that we all kind of put stuff in for each other.
Nice.
We get presents and stuff too. It's just not. I've got a lot of little kids in my family, so that's what the main focus is for them. I try to convince the younger ones every year that I'm a Christmas elf, so it's always fun. Yeah,
Cute.
I love this time of year though. So, do you guys bring any older traditions into your celebration?
For me, obviously, I kind of put this under the older tradition category because of the history behind it, but obviously I participate in the gift giving tradition that was started by the Christians and like their three wise men story. I also participate in the feasting traditions started by most of the pagan religions back in the day. So like basically they would feast to celebrate the coming of the winter solstice, and they would have just like harvested a lot of the meat from their animals. And a lot of them, if they couldn't smoke it, they'd have to eat it right away or else it would spoil. And the reason they would do that is because of they didn't want to have to feed them throughout the cold winter months, and a lot of them would have just died anyways. So they kind of slaughter them then. So that's kind of where I've always found that the feasting tradition came from, as far as our holidays. And we're obviously lucky enough to be able just to go to the store to purchase our food whenever we need it or want it. But the fact that the whole old feasting tradition started and still exists makes me and my belly happy. So I also try to put up a holiday tree like you guys were talking about. Growing up, we did it just because everyone else did. But since becoming older and being involved in the paranormal world and spiritual world, I've realized that the importance of evergreen trees and how they're said to have protective qualities, it makes it even mean more to me, especially during the holidays, because a lot of people can go through some negativity, and if their family is not with them and things like that, or just like seasonal depression, it kind of brings back like the smells of evergreen trees and firs and things like that. It kind of brings back that warmth like you were talking about. And even the Celts and Druids used evergreen in their temples as a sign of like everlasting life, which actually makes perfect sense because the trees were always green. They didn't, turn brown and things like that. So those are some of the older traditions that I use in my holiday practice, I guess, and kind of where I feel they come from.
Yeah, and for us, we sort of do the same. I do think it's sort of funny how things just get handed down from generation to generation. You don't really know why you're doing them a lot of times, especially when you're a kid. Nothing's really explained. You just sort of do, like, oh, this is when we have the big dinner. It's Christmas time. So it's sort of fascinating getting into the psychic realms and spiritual realms, and then figuring out or finding out why, with the winter solstice and everything. We do the same. We always have a huge family party, always right after Christmas. Not always on Christmas Day, but a lot of times we can't all get together. We used to have huge parties up in Canada. But so that's a big tradition. We do the feasting as well. But I would say as far as traditional things, we always did the traditional, as far as growing up, where we had the, stockings and everything, and we would have the Christmas tree and have all that. We weren't Catholics though, so we never did the, midnight mass. We didn't do that part of it, the church part of it, but we just did the celebration of regular Christmas.
Yeah, growing up, it was always just about family, really. My mom never really imposed any religion on us. She just kind of let that be let us explore what we wanted. And so she's been very accepting of like me going into paganism and everything. She's been very accepting of that. With her, she's more traditional native anyways. And things are very, very similar between the natives and a lot of the pagan culture and things that we do. So it was an easy transition. But yeah, we do all sorts of things. She does have us go caroling every year too. We're not the best group of singers, but we try, and we have our rounds that we do. A lot of the older people in our life, we go and we kind of try to brighten their day a little bit with that. And this year, I don't know that it's going to happen, but maybe we can do it virtually. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, so that's another thing that we kind of do. Have you ever done caroling or anything like that?
I used to back when I was in high school for the choir that I was in. We would go throughout the neighborhoods around the school and go as a group and do caroling and just kind of walk around the neighborhood singing to people. It was kind of like a practice for us, and we would always do like a Christmas concert with old school carols and things like that. And then the concert was always held at my choir instructor's church, which I always found very interesting because a lot of times we had to do like separation of church and state, but we were able to squeeze that one by somehow. So that was kind of cool. I definitely miss doing that, but there's no way my kids would, with them being the way they are, they would not survive out in the cold just singing. So maybe when they're older.
Yeah, we used to do that too. When I was younger, we always went caroling as kids. Same thing. I come from a big family, so there are 8 of us. But my older sisters would always make us all go caroling. It was so funny. It was a blast, though. Go through the neighborhood, we'd be caroling. And people would invite you in, neighbors, you know what I mean, for hot cocoa and all that kind of stuff. So that was always such a fun thing. It was just a great thing. And then in high school, same thing, the choir. We used to go caroling. That was really, really, they would have us do that at night. You could, like volunteer and go at night, and they would do caroling. But it was so fun, people are so receptive to that. That's great. Yep. And also I think, for traditions for Christmas, I do think, as far as the winter solstice, I always love that time of year because you sort of are getting out of the winter mode because the days start to get longer again. And it almost feels like there's, spring is on the way. So you almost feel like there's hope. I always love those couple days after Christmas going into New Year's. And my mother-in-law had a really funny tradition she used to have us do. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this before, but she said you had to, on New Year's Eve, you had to walk out the front door right at the stroke of midnight with a fish and with a silver dollar, and then you had to walk around the house and come back in through the back door. And that was supposed to be bringing out the old and bringing in new. So it was like new, gifts, money, all positive coming back in through the back of the house. So I thought that was such a funny thing. So she always had us all do that too.
I don't think we've ever done that, but I do actually remember reading something about that. So that's kind of cool. I like that. It's
symbolic, I like that. And sort of getting, ushering out the old, entering in the new. Yeah.
Well, I know that we talked a little bit too about the trees already, but what is a Yule log and why are they used?
So from my understanding, I'm really into Norse mythology. Yuletide and the Yule log comes from a lot of Norse background, and like the Celts and even some of the Druids practice this. But from my understanding, it's the custom of burning a log or a giant log. Sometimes they'd even go out and get a giant tree way back in the day, and it was part of the old winter solstice festivals in Scandinavia and other parts of Northern Europe. And they would do that. It would last for 12 days, and they would feast the entire time. And it was basically where they would try and, how do I say this? So they thought that the sun kind of stood still during solstice because it's the longest day or night of the year. And so they would keep the log burning for 12 days to try and encourage the sun to move. And it's also kind of where we get like the 12 Days of Christmas song. And along with that, it would keep them warm over their hearth while they were feasting for the 12 days. So that's basically what I've learned when it comes to like Norse mythology.
Yep, and I've heard that too with it. With the pagans always honoring and celebrating, Saturn with the Roman gods coming in, and Saturnalia and all of that ceremony, where we sort of took that over, a lot of their traditions, and Yule log being one of them, where you're right with the winter solstice, where they burn the Yule log as like a representation of ending the harvest. That whole season was over, starting anew. So they would burn the Yule log, and like you said, they would have big feasts, and they would sing, and they would, basically have like big gatherings, and it was a huge happy event. So to usher that, because they knew that everything was going to go quiet, they were going to have to be, home. They weren't farming anymore. Everything was harvested, so it wasn't time to plant. So then they were going to study and concentrate on their religion instead. So over the winter, they sort of did that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know modernly too, because a lot of us don't have fireplaces in our homes now. So modernly, if you want that symbolism, still, I know that there are a lot of pagans out there, myself included, that'll actually make a Yule log cake, and it's kind of like a chocolate pumpkin roll type deal, not pumpkin, but like a roll, and that's bringing in that symbolism of that Yule log. So that's something to kind of think about too. It's a little bit more tasty than a traditional Yule log, but it works the same.
It's all about that symbolism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the intent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So while the Yule log also brings in some of the light, what is it meant by bringing in the light?
So honestly, I'm going to be completely honest. I had to look this one up, and I still didn't find much about it because I've never heard this saying. So I'm going to let Heather answer this one. I know that's kind of lame of me, but I've never even heard bringing in the lights. So take it away, Heather.
Oh. I'm sort of on the same page as you. I don't really know of that one. I haven't really heard of that before.
Okay.
Bringing in
So
the light.
yeah, so what I know is, like, how we decorate the trees. Traditionally, you would put like candles and things like that. What it is bringing in the light, representing the sun. So
Yeah, that makes sense. With Saturn being the main focus too, where it's all ending of the summer season, and that makes sense.
So what we do now, though, is when we are decorating our homes and things like that with the Christmas lights, a lot of the times that is what we're doing is we're bringing in the lights. It's an old tradition. We don't think of it that way. A lot of us, anyways, think of it that way. But when you are decorating your trees and stuff outside, you're bringing in the springtime. So it's kind of cool.
I think that sort of sounds like where nowadays you have to have the light boxes. A lot of people who suffer from seasonal disorders, where it starts to get dark, where you have all those months of darkness where you don't have the sunlight, and then people like to have lights. So that totally makes sense. So it makes you feel better,
Yeah, it's a really cool thing that I think not too many people do know it or think about it, because as time goes on, traditions change and the reasons change with those traditions. And that's one that I've always kind of really liked, is bringing in the solstice with lights, just like the sun would. So I kind of like it.
Yeah.
So what are some of the crafts and things that you make for the holiday?
For me, as I said before, I do the cookie baking. I guess that's kind of a craft. Another thing that I like to do is make little ornaments with the kiddos. Like we'll do the palm print on, paper, and then cut it out and give it out to, the grandparents and stuff like that. I also do a lot of my winter themed teas. I have one that I make. It's called the Winter Blues, and it's said to help with like things like seasonal depression and things like that. And I also do a lot of like scented soaps, like winter themed scented soaps, like cinnamon and things like that for my apothecary business, and bath bombs and things like that. Because a lot of people, when we get around the holiday part of the year, they want those things to remind them, oh, hey, it's the warm time of the year, figuratively speaking, of course. So those are just a couple of things that I like to make during the holidays to make people's days a little bit brighter.
Hmm. Yeah, I used to. I mean, I change every year. I don't do the same things every year. I always sort of pick a different craft or thing I want to work on. But I used to always make wreaths. I just made one a couple days ago. But years and years ago, I used to help my grandmother make wreaths for a place they worked where it was a big country club, but it had big doors. And she used to have to make these giant, like 10-foot wreaths. So I used to help make wreaths with real boughs. It was like the coolest thing to make these giant wreaths. So that was just a fun thing. So I used to make like my own wreaths. And we used to make ornaments all the time. I made ornaments with pine cones, and pine cones being a symbol of, health. And it's just a great symbol. So I love the pine cone. So you'll see a lot of pine cone, ornaments around Christmas time. We used to do stained glass, work on candles a lot too, where they have all the special candles where they have different spices in them, herbs, everything for different occasions. So I would give those as gifts as well, so you can sort of make them for people, with certain intention in them. And jewelry, used to do that a lot. We used to make spider ornaments. You've heard the legend of this Christmas spider. It's a German legend where they said that's where tinsel came from. The spiders.
I have not heard that one.
Red. Oh,
I don't think I have either.
Oh, yeah. It's a really cute legend. Yeah, it's a whole story about where tinsel comes from. These people bought a tree, they put it up in the morning, it was covered in spider webs. And it's a thing for spiders. So you can make these little bead spiders and you hang them in your tree. So I used to make those all the time.
Well, that's cute. That's cute.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I do all sorts of crafts. I have a lot of little kids in my family, so we make like the paper snowflakes. We do make our own like garland. My mom right now is crocheting a bunch of like stockings and things like that just to hang around. We do all sorts of different things. We've decorated pine cones before. We use like we painted them with glitter because it was just a craft for to entertain the kids. All sorts of things. We make cookies. My mom makes the best sugar cookies. We do all sorts of fun crafty things around this time of year. It helps keeps everybody busy too. We make things like we'll work with the kids to make things so they can give to their parents and whatever. And that way they feel included with the gift giving too. All sorts of different things. So I really enjoy the fall winter months for this. Outside we like to do we'll make like art ice sculptures and snowmen, snow animals, that type of thing too. So we get kind of crafty with that. The one year we actually dyed the snow too, so it was kind of cool. We had like Yoda and we like dyed it green and everything. It was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Fun. Yeah, we did it. We used to do that with spray bottles of colored water and make like different things. Made a giant rabbit one year. It was so much fun. Yep.
My mom one year she saw somebody had made like these colored ice balls, and so with the balloons and everything. So we had to, because she wanted them to line her walkway with it. So we had to make a bunch for her so that it would look cool. It was easy and it kept everybody busy and happy. So why not?
That's a good idea too. Yeah. I did just come across something really funny though a couple days ago, going through a lot of my mother's old paperwork. She passed away a few years ago, and there was a whole box of old letters from World War II from my uncles when they were in the military. They were in Canada, the Canadian military, but they did this thing where Christmas Eve, 1942, my great-grandfather took a huge scroll of paper. It's like 30 feet long. They took like 4 layers, 4 of these scrolls, put carbon paper in between them all, and then had everybody at the party on Christmas Eve, this is all my great aunts and uncles, write notes, like in a big continuous chain of notes. And then they rolled them up and mailed them off to these guys, to my 3 uncles. And it's the funniest thing because they're all drinking. Like it starts out normal. And then as like some people are writing notes and like they're getting drunker as they go. It's absolutely hilarious. Like someone just fell into the tree, and it's such a strange thing to look into the traditions, you know what I mean? Like just the way that everybody's joking around in the notes and everything, and how that's like 80 years ago, and it's no different. You know what I mean? The sense of humor and just what everybody's talking about is so funny to me. Just like they're here now, you know.
That's
But
cool.
that was really cool. Blast from the Past. It was like peeking into Christmas in 1942, you know, with the war going on and just absolute craziness. Funny.
It's like a time capsule.
Absolutely. Yeah. But cool, though, you know, because they're like, we're going out, you know, the uncles are going out to get the tree now. And then, you know, the whole thing just goes on and on. It's hilarious. Like so-and-so's playing the harmonica and they're singing really badly and just going on and on about what's going on during the party at school. Really, really neat.
Cool. That's really
I love, obviously, the older traditions, but I also like, as an adult now, like we were saying earlier, we kind of just do things because that's what our parents did. But I find it so fascinating now looking at like all the different pagan traditions and how the Christians basically took over a lot of the things to convert people and took over their traditions. And it's so crazy because like doing research about it, you know, as an adult, it's like, oh, they didn't even embrace Christmas for the longest time because, you know, they didn't have, you know, the Christians didn't have a date for Christ's birth, so they didn't even feel the need to celebrate it. And like in the 4th century or whatever, they're like, oh, we're gonna celebrate this too, and you guys already celebrate this time of year, so why not you celebrate this guy's birth?
Yeah,
and
they absolutely
like,
changed it.
they did, and they're like, oh, what is a better way to, you know, make it seem human than to give them like a real human birth story? And a lot of people at the time didn't see Jesus as an actual human that walked the earth, but like a spiritual entity, so to speak. And even like the Puritans, for the longest time, it was outlawed in the U.S. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but like you weren't allowed to celebrate Christmas as a Christian for the longest time during the beginning of the United States in a lot of locations because the Puritans were like, no, we're not embracing that. All the traditions are from, you know, pagan religions and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, they were calling them out on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. But I mean, honestly, who can blame them? Like Kay was saying earlier, everyone wants that like glowy, warm feeling during the dreary winter times and coming together and, you know, being part of something even bigger than just yourself or your own family. It's like your immediate family. It's like you got all kinds of families together and celebrated, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I always find those types of traditions interesting. Like, I'm going to say even our gift giving, a lot of people think it just comes from Christianity, but it actually comes from Odin in the Norse mythology. Like, a lot of people don't even know that. And it's so fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yep. Santa didn't used to look the way we'd see him now. He typically wore blue. Odin was known as Father Winter and Father Time and all that, and that is Santa.
Saint
so,
Nicholas was a real person, right?
Yes. And then I always found it interesting too, since I've learned this, the whole 8 reindeer thing actually comes from Odin's 8-legged white horse that flew through the air, checking over, you know, at nighttime and on the roofs of houses. Like Odin would fly with his 8-legged horse and check on everybody, and he would be the one that would give gifts, and even some of the ghosts during Christmas times would be the ones checking on people and giving gifts. So I always found that pretty interesting, that the 8-legged reindeer is actually one 8-legged horse or 8 reindeer. You know what I mean?
Yep. And I was doing a little research on St. Nicholas too. I thought it was funny. He's a patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes. So I thought that was sort of fascinating. Like, how they sort of pick and choose what they want to sort of highlight. As a bishop.
Yep, it's definitely interesting how things just change. I'm not even sure like how something like that just changes, but it just, I guess as time goes on, it just does. Speaking of the reindeer, though, one of the facts that I like to always tell everybody, so the female reindeer are the only ones that keep their antlers during the whole year. So all of Santa's reindeer are female deer.
That's cool.
Yeah. the males shed their antlers, and the females will keep them all year long. I learned that actually just a few years ago because I follow a like a reindeer sanctuary farm thing on Facebook, and they told me about it. So I was like, hey, that's kind of cool, kind of interesting. So,
Definitely.
Yeah, my daughter was to talk about the reindeer too. But she lives in Alaska, and she was saying that up there they call the elk reindeer, even though they're elk, they call them reindeer. So I thought that was really weird because if you look at, elk, they just look like giant deer basically, but they're huge like moose. So I thought that was really funny. She said she was all confused because they kept referring to these, to them as reindeer. But they're different. I mean, but anyway, it's sort of funny. So up in Alaska, yep, they call them the same.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, if I could have a farm, I would have reindeer for sure because they're pretty cool. But that's someday, maybe. I don't know.
Reindeer sanctuary. Yep.
But I'd have peacocks too, so it's going to be a really strange
a friend
farm.
of mine has peacocks. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She has them on the farm.
I hear they're mean, but they're really cool. So, I mean,
they're
maybe
loud.
Yeah.
They're they do that shrieking thing.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's right by the Buffalo Zoo, and you hear in the summer you hear the elephants.
Yeah.
And the
cool.
lions roaring. It's really cool. But every once in a while you hear that screech,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, they can fly too. That surprised me when I was a really little kid. I didn't realize that they could fly. And yeah, they can fly. So they're not going to fly like a huge distance, I don't think. But because they're kind of big, but they can fly.
Yeah, they definitely do their own thing. She had them out in the pens. She has ducks and all sorts of different animals. She has like a petting zoo, but she has mini ponies and all sorts of animals, donkeys and llamas and everything. But the peacocks just sort of do their own thing. They're not in a pen or anything. She just lets them roam around. It's pretty cool. But they usually stay where the chickens are and with the ducks.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I would definitely have like a similar situation if I could. I love caring for animals, so that would just be like my dream job right there, is just to stay home and take care of all of my animals. I mean, I technically do that now anyways, just not large animals.
Right. Well, she works at the Niagara County SPCA, I guess. So when animals are surrendered, they have to go save different, you know how that is, every once in a while. They'll come across an animal that needs somewhere to go. They go and, save these poor animals that people take in. They can't take care of them. And so she ends up with a really funny assortment of animals because they're like, hey, we have a llama.
That's
so she'll go get it. Oh,
so awesome.
Yeah,
I feel that way just in general because we have a zoo in our house, like quite literally it feels like a zoo, and a bunch of different types of breeds of animals. And so every time somebody needs to like rehome or needs it to be rescued, they always come to me first, like, hey, are you interested? And of course, me being the caring heart for animals that I have, most of the time, it sounds horrible, I'm not gonna say it all the time, but most of the time I like animals more than humans. But
yeah,
I feel like I want to take them in, and my husband's like, no more mouths to feed or butts to clean. I need a farm.
Yep, that's how I am. Working as a dog trainer, like everybody just comes to me for everything. Some of the messages that I get and some of the pictures that I get, I have to just say, please take your animal, whatever it is, whatever's going on with it, to the vet. I'm not a vet. But people will do that. So yeah, I definitely get that. And having like my own farm where I can take care of my own stuff and just kind of be with my animals would be a dream. So
well, like the spirits say, like the animals are older than humans, and they were originally around being taken care of by the angelic realm. So they're actually telepathic animals. So they're definitely a different phylum. That's why animals are so funny, because they'll look at each other. You'll watch them. They'll look at each other. And they'll both go in the same direction. They'll both go and do something. So they operate telepathically. So it's pretty neat. You can practice that with your own animals. You know how you can sort of call them? You're thinking about them like, wait, did I let so-and-so back in? You know, and all of a sudden they show up at the door or they show up at your feet. Like, what do you look? You know, were you calling me? You know how animals do that all the time. So they definitely have a different energy level to them. And they even say, like, if there's say a house burns down, you'll hear stories about some of the people didn't make it, but the animals almost always make it all alive. But they say that the angels, they will always take care of animals first over humans.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is your fondest memories of celebrating the holiday?
Oh boy, here we go. For me, this is kind of a funny story. It's why I said, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to say 7 years old, okay? And my grandparents always went overboard when it came to Christmas, especially on my mom's side. And I overheard my mom and dad talking, and I was eavesdropping, which I shouldn't have been, but that's what kids do. And they were talking about, my mom's like, yeah, I can't believe they got her a 13-inch one. And I was like, what do you mean they got me 13-inch? 13-inch what? And my dad's like, it's a snake. It's a 13-inch snake. And I was like, they thought I was going to be scared or worried, but this kind of goes along with the animals thing. Like, I was excited. So the day comes for Christmas, and we're at my grandparents' opening gifts, and they saved the best for last, of course, in their eyes. And my mom was videotaping on her brand new camcorder my dad just got her, and it was like one of the big giant ones that like sit on your shoulder, and they have like the VCR tape that goes in there. But anyways, they're sitting there recording, and my grandma brings me this giant box, and I open it up, and I'm all excited thinking I'm gonna get this snake, and I open up the box, and it was a 13-inch Zenith TV. And I was so disappointed, and I started crying, and my grandma's like, what? What's wrong? It's a brand new TV. Like, why are you crying right now? And I had to tell him, like, it's not a snake. So to this day, my dad especially still teases me about the 13-inch snake that I thought I was getting. And that is really like one of the last times that before my grandfather passed, that we actually had a holiday together with all of our family together. And it was like my grandfather, once he passed, it was like the heart of the family passed with him, and holidays just were never the same. So that's like the last time that I felt like our family was complete in a way and had that like Christmas joy. So it's also part of the reason why it's such a fond memory for me.
Aw, yeah. Yeah, it's tough, boy, because then all of a sudden it seems like time marches on, and then all of a sudden people are not there anymore. It's crazy. You don't realize it when it's happening, you know?
Yeah. He died when he was 52, so he died young.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I was 10 years old when he died, and it's like, man, so much, we could have done so much, you know, if he had just gone to the doctor sooner. But, you know, we all have our purpose in life, and when we go, it's our time. So,
yeah. Yeah, I used to love Christmas. Was always my favorite time of year. My oldest sister actually passed away on December 23rd. It was, 6 years ago now, but before that, we always all got together. It was amazing. You know, all of us were still in town. You know, it was just it was just a weird thing. It took me a couple of years to really get back into the swing of Christmas again. You know what I mean? Because it was just every year. December would roll around, and it was just, that's all you could think of. For me, you know, it's sort of, it was just an awful, awful thing. But as kids, it was we were just really, really close as siblings. But one of my favorite Christmases was when when I was really little, probably about 5 or 6 years old. But my older brother we had a 2-story house, and he would climb up on the roof with jingle bells and like, and make noise and stomp around the roof. And they'd be like, it's Santa, and there's reindeer up there. It was the funniest thing. It's snowy, and he's up on the roof. We're like, I don't think he should be up there. I'm a little kid thinking, it's probably not a good idea. But my littler sisters were like, oh my God, Santa. It was so funny. Because they used to do a thing on the radio, I think they still do, where they give you like tracking. Like Santa's for Kansas, you know, it was really funny. And it was so much fun, though, to get into all of it.
That's so funny, because you just reminded me of when I was a kid. I was like 6 or 7, and I was under the whole impression like, oh, Santa's not real, blah, 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 blah. And it's because I had watched my mom. I snuck down and watched my mom wrapping presents on Christmas Eve. And I noticed I was smart enough to realize her handwriting looked a lot like Santa's handwriting. And so it was funny because I was like, I don't believe in Santa. And my dad was like, well, if you don't believe in Santa, then you better realize you're not going to get any gifts, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because my dad did something similar where he was like shaking jingle bells, and Santa, I woke up to that, and Santa left presents for my brother, but didn't leave presents for me. And so I flung open the window. I ran back to my room. I flung open the window. It was like 5 a.m. and I was like, I believe in you, Santa. Please come back. So the whole jingle bell thing totally reminded me of my dad, you know, playing that little prank on me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was a manager at Toys R Us for a long time when my kids were really little. So it was like perfect. So I used to do that like years and years ago. But it was really, really funny Christmas time. So I would get the coolest presents. You know what I mean? I always could get everything they wanted because I, you know, was in charge of boxes. I'm like, perfect. You know, they want the new Nintendo, whatever it is. So it was hilarious. So Christmas was insane. Like when I worked at the store, because I would get all sorts of deals and find cool stuff. And it was like the funniest thing. Like my kids never realized how spoiled they were, you know. I'm like, you don't realize, you know, they'd have like 100 presents because I'd be like, oh, I got this too, and I got a deal on this one, so I bought that. But it was a funny thing when they were little, you know. And then when they got older, and I was always trying to find places to hide things. You know how that is. Your parents always have somewhere to hide things. And then only like 2 years ago, my son, who's now like in his 20s, he's like, we were joking about it because they never really asked about Santa. You know what I mean? They never even said anything. They never did that. Where it's like, I don't believe in Santa. They were like really funny kids, you know? They were always like, sure, Santa, okay. When they were little. And it was hilarious because my son's like, you know, I always knew where you hid presents. I would always go through and check everything out. I'm like, you know, you're such a jerk. He was smart enough not to tell me that he didn't, you know, that he found them.
My parents were smart enough. We had a garage attached, and like where our furnace and stuff was in the garage. And so they had a door that locked, and they had a key to it, and they were smart enough to lock everything in there. Otherwise, I would have snooped and I would have found everything, because I'm one of those weirdos that like I wait until the last week before Christmas, sometimes Christmas Eve, to buy things, because if I buy someone a gift, I am going to give it to them early. I just cannot wait to see like their reaction. So even with the kids, I have to hide everything the week before and like try and like tie my hands down, figuratively speaking, to keep myself from giving things to them early. Like I have 2 things that I bought for them already, and it's like, oh God, I should have just left it, because they're crafts that my friend and neighbor made for them, and I was like, it's safer at your house, please, I'll give you the money, but keep them at your house.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, when I was little, I was crazy. Well, I'm still crazy, but when I was little, I was like so excited about everything all the time. It was really funny. And Christmas, but I never, you know, when you're like 3 or 4, you don't know what a calendar is. You don't know what day it is. You know, so I'd drive my mother crazy. Like, how many days till Christmas? So she used to have to make paper chains for me. You know, with the days of the week. Each little chain is a day of the week. She'd be like, okay, every morning, okay, you can rip off another chain. And then when the chain is gone, then it's Christmas time. So she would always have this big chain in the kitchen. It was hilarious. But 8 kids, but I was the one that would just drive her insane, you know? So I'd be like, well, if I rip all the chains off, does that mean Christmas is sooner? She's like, no, it's one a day. Oh, it was so funny. Because I would like break out into rashes and hives. I get so excited. So funny. Oh my God. Yeah.
Hey Kay, what's your favorite memory?
Oh, I've got lots. Well, the one that really comes to my mind is, so for about 3 months before Christmas, I had been having dreams. I was about 7 years old at the time. I had been having dreams of my dad bringing me a brown puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept asking him, like, I know you're bringing me a brown puppy. Mm-hmm. Well, it was, I want to say it was Christmas Eve. I had stayed up so late. waiting for him to get back home because he had gone out for something. And I waited and waited and waited. Finally, I fell asleep on the couch, and then I kind of heard my mom like kind of like him and her like kind of bickering a little bit because she was not for getting a puppy because we had a lot of kids in our family. She already had to take care of, a full family. She didn't want to take care of a puppy too. But he brought it in. He sat it on my stomach, and I like grabbed it because I was like, "What is this?" And he's like, I went to roll over. And he's like, "No, no, 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 no," And then I woke up and there was this puppy sitting there. He had actually rescued this puppy from an abusive situation. So he was not expecting to get this puppy, but for somehow, I don't know how our gifts work, but somehow I knew that I was going to get this little brown puppy. He was a German Shepherd Husky mix.
Ooh,
And
beautiful.
yeah, he was a beautiful dog. And I named him Lucky because I was obsessed with 101 Dalmatians. So I named him Lucky after that. So, yep, that was my fondest. I also like when my baby sister first came home, my mom went into labor, and I remember like a week before she was worried about the pregnancy because she was past due. And I said, "Don't worry, Mama, Santa's gonna bring this baby." I was like 5.5, 6 years old at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying, "Don't worry, Mama, Santa's bringing the baby." And she's like, "Well, I hope not," because it was already past due. And I was like, "No, Santa's bringing her." And Christmas morning, she went into labor, and I made everybody wait for my baby sister and my mom to get home for the presents. Well, in my mind, for whatever reason, as a little kid, I imagined my baby sister as being like the same age. We were going to play and do everything together.
Oh,
And then
right.
when she brought home this baby, I was like, what do I do with this? It was, but as the years went on, we're inseparable. She's the same size as me and everything, so we can trade shoes and shirts and whatever, So she ended up being the best friend I knew she was going to be. So it worked out, but I just had to wait. So I liked those two memories the most.
That's awesome.
That's cute. Yep.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you that I was absolutely obsessed with 101 Dalmatians as well. Like, I broke the VCR. My mom had to buy like 3 copies of the tape because I was obsessed with that movie.
Yeah, it was. Do you remember McDonald's used to have like the special toys and stuff that you could get? Well, I still have some of they're like snow globes, and it's 101 Dalmatian snow globes from McDonald's. I still have them somewhere, but those were kind of cool. My dad went like nuts trying to get me those because like certain stores will only have certain ones and things, and he wanted me to have the full, collection. So that was like his own mission to get me all of those because I did like them. I like snow globes too, so it was like perfect.
Aww.
That's cute. Yep. Yeah.
So do you ladies have a favorite holiday treat or dish that you like to have every year?
For me, I am absolutely obsessed with like the ham, like the brown sugar ham. And then my grandma started this, but my mom does it now. She makes extra like pineapples and cherries that she cooks in the ham or on the ham, so you get like the sweet and salty together. So now she literally makes a bowl. She has like one bowl for everybody else and like a bowl for me, just of the pineapples and cherries.
Yep. My mom was a big baker, so there's a lot of her recipes that I use, and then my grandmother's recipes too. So yeah, there's a couple things. There's these cream cheese cookies that my mother always made, my grandmother made. It's like 5 sticks of butter in these things. They're crazy. They're just all butter and cream cheese and sugar. They're amazing. So there's a couple different cookies that are old timey recipes that we make. Her sugar cookies and things like that. But I always have to make all the traditional cookies. So that's my big thing.
Yeah, I enjoy the the sugar cookies too. My mom makes those um, for like on our table. I'm not really sure. I kind of just I kind of like it all. I think it all goes well together. Kind of like this past Thanksgiving. I don't know if I've heard this from a lot of people that for some reason this Thanksgiving's meal was just like the best as it's ever been in years. Um, and it was that way at my family's too. It was just everything just went perfectly together. For some reason, nothing was off. Like it was good. And that's just kind of how we have our Christmas feast is very similar in setup. So I get kind of like two Thanksgivings. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. I do too. For Christmas, the last couple of years I've been having a Christmas party for the family here, so there's been like 35 people. I don't think we're allowed to do that this year.
No.
but we'll see. At least have some people out for it. But I always make like same. I do like a big turkey, and I do the ham, the spiral ham with the, pineapples and cherries, same thing. Yep, that's a big thing I make every year. So that I always look forward to, is having a big dinner. We used to do a big thing up in Canada with all my cousins up there, up at I think it's St. Catharines. But we would always meet up there, and we hadn't done that in years, but when we were kids growing up, so that was always a huge dinner, and all the aunts, everybody would make something different. But I remember those so vividly, those giant dinners, because we come from a really big family. There'd be like 300 people there. It's just huge. We had to rent a hall for everybody.
That's cool.
So yeah, absolutely, so much fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My mom makes this thing every year now that my grandma used to make. It's called German potato candy, and it sounds really gross, but basically instead of using like flour and stuff, they'd use boiled potatoes, like mashed potatoes, and they would take what's it called, powdered sugar, and mix it in with the potatoes till it becomes kind of thick. And then they would put it down on a piece of like parchment paper, and then take peanut butter and put it on top of that and do little rolls, basically like a jelly roll, but instead it's this peanut butter and potato starch basically. And it tastes like peanut butter fudge.
Oh, wow.
And it's so good. You can't even tell that it's potatoes.
Yeah, those are good. A friend, I don't remember what they're called, but they're whiskey cookies, and they kind of look like waffles, little waffles.
Mm-hmm.
They're made with whiskey, and she used to make those every year. It's like a mapley type of flavor to it, and oh my God, those were just so good. I don't think I've really thought about them for a couple of years now, but maybe I'll have to try to find a recipe for them, because those are really, really good.
Yeah. My neighbors used to make these rum cream cheese cookies. They were like sandwich cookies with like confectioner's sugar. It was almost like a filling. Like you make two halves with a cookie press, and then you put it. Oh my God, they were so good. I still have to. They were amazing. I still have to call her up and review. I need those cookies. I need you to make me a batch of those cookies. They're fantastic, and they're like nothing I've had.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. She gave me the recipe one time, and it wasn't right, or it wasn't the same. You know how that is? People like, it's not quite right. When you're making a recipe, you throw your own stuff in there. So I was like, it was a little bit different. So
Yeah, I know how that is. Unfortunately, mine's just like if I make any cookies, they're gonna come out like a brick.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I do wrong, but I'm like my grandma with cookies. I guess they just turn to bricks.
Yeah.
Doug eats them anyway, so he's a good sport. I think I'll keep him around for a little bit. Yeah, my favorite holiday drink too. Like a lot of people like the eggnog. Eggnog is too like I don't know. I don't really too spicy maybe. Like I don't like all that in it. But I do like the custard nog. And what I like to do is I like to take the raspberry Smirnoff, and then you mix that with the custard nog, and it tastes just like a raspberry cheesecake.
Ooh,
it's
wow.
my favorite. I only have it just on Christmas. It's the only time I'll drink that, but it tastes really, really good. So
Mhm. Yeah, I put the
See,
Fireball whiskey in with eggnog, and that's really good. It was like
mhm,
cinnamon eggnog. It's really, really good.
mhm,
see, I'm kind of spoiled in the eggnog department because my husband and both my children are lactose intolerant. But
Mm.
fairly recently, I found out that Lactaid makes eggnog. And so I got that, and I'm so used to just drinking it on my own that I still finished it in like a day. I can't just sip eggnog. Like I feel like I have to chug it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest thing. It just sits there and I'm like, there's so much milk in there. You know, if it sits there, it's gonna spoil. So I just drink it really
mhm,
quickly.
Yeah.
And I
Go
went through a
away.
whole yeah, I went through a whole
Mhm.
thing of it, even though he was technically able to drink it. I just went by habit and drank the whole like half gallon.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the Tom and Jerry's drink too. I get that down at Jamestown Bowling Alley, and it just once a year again, but it's so good. I'm not really sure what it's made with, but it's kind of like an eggnoggy type of drink too. Um, but it's really good. So if you get a chance, order a Tom and Jerry's. They're really good. So,
Mhm.
so well, any warm wishes for our listeners today?
Yeah, definitely just stay positive with everything going on in the world. It's really easy to get caught into a negative spiral. I've been catching myself here and there doing that. So try and stay as positive anytime those negative thoughts start creeping in. And obviously, it's really hard with the winter coming to stay positive too, because we can't go outside as much and the sun's not there. Just try and stay positive and um, do the best you can. We're all doing the best we can with what we have. So definitely enjoy your holiday and have a safe holiday and just stay positive.
Yep, I'm gonna echo the same. I mean, you never know how things are gonna turn out. Stay positive, stay happy. Better days are definitely on the way. Things have to change. You never know what's gonna happen. You know, but just when
Mhm.
things seem the darkest, there's always a surprise around the corner. So I always tell people you never know how things are gonna be, but stay happy, stay healthy, positive. Wish everyone a happy Christmas and a happy New Year. Thank goodness. I have high
Yeah,
hopes for 2021.
right.
Keep fingers
Like
crossed.
Yes.
like I always say, the darkest hour is just before dawn. That's what you have
Woo-hoo.
to kind of remember. So,
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. Even if, I know today we talked about Yule, we talked about Christmas, but no matter what holiday you practice, I hope it's a wonderful one, and I hope it brings everybody good good tidings and good cheer. So thank you all for being on my show. Yuletide blessings to all, and to all good night.
Okay, thank
thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
night. Bye. Thank you.
Good night.
You're welcome.
And again, I just want to say happy birthday to my baby sister. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Love you, Sammy. Thank you for joining my circle tonight. It was a pleasure to discuss this spooky topic with you, and a thank you to all my listeners for tuning in. And as always, dreadful dreams. Remember, my darlings, to always be kind to those around you, including our friends with claws, fangs, and fur. Hello, darling. Love the show and want to be more involved? All while showing your support? Have I got the perfect thing for you? Subscribe to my Patreon page today, and as a patron, you'll have the option to select which tier you are interested in, with exclusive patron-only offers from early access, live stream chats, shoutouts, distant readings, and so much more. If this has piqued your interest, please follow the link in the chat or go to patreon.com and search Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn and become a patron today. Thank you for your support, darlings, and as always, dreadful dreams.